pension benefits and what's happening with this bankruptcy on the whole. There are a number of things that I cannot go into and talk about because I'm under federal guidelines, which does not allow me to go into depth into a number of things that's happening in the mediation process. But I can talk about the bankruptcy in that part and how it impacts the retirees in that part. And a lot of things, one of the major things, I guess, that I always start is the city of Detroit really bankrupt at this point? And a lot of people believe that it is so because of what they read in the newspapers or what they heard on the television. But why I got this 6-inch binder here and why I take it around with me is because that it really shows that the city of Detroit is not in bankruptcy. It's not bankrupt, I should say. It shows the financial dollars that are in the city of Detroit. It shows how much money is there and how much money is currently being spent. As you've heard some of this, and a lot of this is really hard to get in the press. Recently, though, I was able to get a little bit in the press, and this was probably about 2 weeks ago. If you may have seen it, there were over $62 million being spent on consulting in the city of Detroit, which is an enormous amount of money. But currently, right now, that number is well over $100 million. And so people would wonder that if you could spend $100 million on consulting, is the city of Detroit really broke? And I think that one would look at, if you look at a number of these contracts, a number of news media have been trying to get a hold of these actual contracts. And these consulting contracts really show what the city of Detroit is spending. And so let me give you an example on that, and I'm not going to stay a lot on that, then I'll move to the retirees, but I think people need to know the background so they know what condition the city of Detroit really is in. Conway McKenzie has a contract. It's one consultant that's working in the city of Detroit, and I'm using them because they really go to the retiree issue. Conway McKenzie is really looking at the retiree benefits and pensions. Conway McKenzie's contract, and I do have that contract in here, is $4.2 million. That's what that contract started at. $4.2 million plus expenses. But one of the other things on the fee schedule with that contract, it also says that in addition to the $4.2 million, the city of Detroit is paying $162,000 bi-weekly for an advisory fee. And no one talks about that advisory fee at all. And so most people don't know that. One of the other things that have happened since then is when you look at the contract that they have with Conway McKenzie, in that, this advisory fee can go up. And it can go up if they don't get the necessary work that they're supposed to get, the attorneys don't get the necessary hours. And so I also have in this document the most recent bill that Kevin Orr paid under advisory fee for Conway McKenzie. The advisory fee now being paid for by the citizens of the city of Detroit now is $400,000 every other week. So the advisory fee now went from $162,000 to $400,000. And that's because they have not provided them the necessary work and whatever. And the fee can continue to go up. That's the essence of what's happening in the city of Detroit. Now, probably 14 months ago, and probably none of you in this room may not know who I am, but 14 months ago, I bargained a contract in the city of Detroit for $33 unions. That contract would have saved the city $180.2 million had they put it in place. The contract didn't get put in place because the state says, don't put it in place. They said, we need some work rule changes, we're not going to do that. Now, one would ask, why would they do that? 14 months ago, I started talking about why the city of Detroit and why outside entities wanted to take over the city of Detroit. There were two reasons. And those two reasons now have become very clear if you've seen what's going on in the city of Detroit. One of the reasons was to bust union contracts in the city of Detroit. That was one of the reasons. The second reason was to take over the assets of the city of Detroit. And if you've been following what's happening, that's exactly what's happening right now. And so they went to move to take over, as you've heard, the lighting authority. As you know, one of the real reasons why the governor said that we have to come into the city of Detroit is that we have to provide lighting. We have to fix the lighting because the number of lights are out. That's true. There's thousands of lights out in the city of Detroit. And the reason it said they're coming in is because we have to provide the services that the people are looking for their taxes. The second thing that they said the reason was for coming into the city of Detroit was because of crime. And we had to get control of the crime. That's also true. But one needs to look at what's going on today. 14 months later, not one street light has been turned off. Not one additional street light has been turned off. And the crime, as anyone knows, has increased. And so the two major things that they said the reason why they were coming into Detroit to do the bankruptcy was to correct inadequacies that were happening within the city of Detroit. And those deal around services. But what have you seen happen in the last 14 months? They formed a lighting authority, right? They said, we're going to do that to turn on the lights. But when they formed the lighting authority, guess what happened? They took it away, they took the department away from the city of Detroit. That's one asset. And then they created a lighting authority. The lighting authority is composed of 9 people that's sitting on the board. Only 3 people are sitting on the board for Detroit. Other entities is everywhere else. So they lost control of the lighting commission. Now you've heard that they're going to create a water authority. That's the second asset, second large asset. You've also heard that they're moving to create a tunnel authority. And so they're going to sell off and take the tunnel, where it's not going to be under control of the city of Detroit. And so they continue to move all the assets. And then they said, well, you know what? City Airport is really not doing something it needs to do, so we need to form an authority for City Airport. And then the last thing that you heard of, which just recently with the controversy, is that the state took over and the council did a lease agreement for Belle Isle, for a 10-year lease agreement. And a 10-year lease agreement is supposed to bring in $20 million to fix Belle Isle. Another sham. And I talked about that. And as late as day before yesterday, today is Saturday, so Thursday, Senator Khan came out in Lansing and verified what I was saying. I also have the Senate bill, and you can look it up or have someone looking for it if you look on the internet. It's Senate Bill 188. Senate Bill 188 is what is supposed to provide the revenue for Belle Isle. That's the Department of Natural Resources. The governor had requested $3.7 million so they could fix Belle Isle. The legislature between the House and the Senate said, no, we're not going to give you that money. We will, though, put $2 million into the budget. And so what you did is they took Belle Isle, at least currently right now because it's now before the loan board, but it's $2 million that's supposed to go towards fixing Belle Isle. Now keep in mind what everybody's been telling you. It's going to take $20 million to fix it. Well, if you only got $2 million, why do you take it? Because you don't have the money to fix it. And this is what Senator Khan now has said to his colleagues in Lansing, has said, we don't need to take on this headache. Because number one, we don't have the money. And number two, the capital needs to be fixed because remember, if you know, that money that's put in the Department of Natural Resources go to fix the capital in Lansing. And there are leaks in the capital. And he says, you mean we're going to take on Belle Isle to fix Belle Isle and we're going to let the capital continue to go on with these leaks? We also have other state parks that are not being fixed. And we're going to take on Belle Isle. So those are the issues that are going on. And so really this was designed as I told people, to take it over. Now, does Detroit have some financial issues? Yes, they do. Is it to the magnitude that you need an emergency manager or somebody to take it over? No, you didn't. Let's go now to the pension issue.